these pieces of wire you see, they represent tunnels. If we could connect up all the tunnels that have ever been mined in the mine over the road, it's over 1,400 kilometres. I have been trying to find out how many tons of rock would go out, but I don't seem to have a record of that. Also, the amount of dollars that have gone into the Australian economy has come out of this mine. We've built roads, hospitals, schools. There's been billions of dollars come out. Well, for all the wages, you're looking at about 40% direct tax and another 10% GST. So, and plus the companies pay an awful amount of tax. And of course we've got railway workers that live there for the mine, and a whole string of people that the cars they import from around the world, when they end up in Mount Isa. That money goes back to wherever the cars come from. And it's been a massive economic concern. So the big mine's closed. Just out 20k along the road, there is another mine called George Fisher. And to give you some idea, 25 years ago, they had 15 ore bodies. They started mining 2 of them, and I think they're still only mining those 2 ore bodies. The life of the mine is going to be about 70 years. But I was servicing drill rigs out there, and they went down from the bottom of where the workings were, which is 19 of them, and they put a hole down a kilometre, and they were there all the way. Well, they can't announce that, but we know it's there. And so we've got no idea how much ore we've got, how long it's going to last. And just out over the back here, they're developing a big open pit. No one knows about it, but I'm an old miner, old driller, and we sort of keep our ears open. But, so within the area, we've got massive amounts of mineral. Did anyone come in from Paul Curry side?
Yeah.
Did you see those big trucks with ore bins?
Yeah.
They're bringing concentrate in from around Paul Curry. Mount Isa Mines.
What's that here?
Mount Isa Mines have a big mine called Ernest Henry Mine. Actually, they don't have it now, they sold it. The other side of Cloncurry, and there are quite a lot of smaller mines. So those big bins are bringing concentrate into the smelters here. And within the Mount Isa Cloncurry area, people are aware. Back in 1900, which is 125 years ago, there were over 100 little mines scattered all through the country around here. And so it's very, very rich mineralised area. Okay. You'll note that when I'm doing a tour, I continually go from past to present, because the evolution of mining, it's quite a brilliant story, and I'm very passionate about the actual evolution of mining. This drill rig here, this is the very first piece of mobile drilling equipment was ever brought into the mine. Now it's a raw part, it's a bit of steel, but every piece of machinery has a story. And this was specifically brought in for ground support. Now in the real early days, we used timber, Oregon pine. And in the upper levels of the mine, there are kilometres of 12 by 12 inch Oregon pine and miles of 10 by 3 inch decking on top. You
So
couldn't
the
have,
Oregon came from Canada, the timber. Oregon, the timber.
it would have come from Canada. Yes.
Not
Yes.
easy.
And of course that got too expensive anyway. But as we got more, I could talk for 3 days, but I get sidetracked sometimes. But as we got more and more developed, they developed what's called rock bolts, which is a bolt you put in the ground, it's anchored up there, and you put a plate on it and tighten the ground up to hold it falling down. In the real early days, they never had any money. And so they started mining. They went down a couple of 100 metres and they started mining the ore bodies up. And when they got quite a lot of money, they put in some very long core drill holes. And they found that down deeper, the ore was much richer and the ground was much better. So they abandoned what they'd started and went down deep. And the ground was pretty good, so they didn't need to timber it. They only bolted what was bad ground, patches of ground that was unstable. To do that, and I did it when I was a boy, we put a ladder on each wall, we put a plank across. We stood up on that plank with one of these and drilled up into it, put bolts in it to hold it up. The only reason we were drilling into it was because we were worried it might fall down. And of course we knocked a lot down and we killed and maimed an awful lot of guys that were doing ground support. This machine was specifically bought in for ground support. It had a much shorter mast on it and shorter drill rods. The operator has some protection because he's drilling up here. But he had some protection of the rocks that he was knocking down. So it was the first major innovation, safety-wise, in the drilling area. So we're just going to go for a walk through here. All these machines here all belong to my son. He's a collector of stuff. He travels all over the country picking up stuff and swapping stuff. These machines here are what I was using when I was a boy. This machine was used for ground support, and also in mining you can't just drill a hole and blast it and break the ground. It's got to have somewhere to move into. So we mined vertical holes from level to level. We mined them with these and we mined them off ladders. Very, very hazardous work. We killed and maimed an awful lot of people doing that job. And nowadays we've got a raise borer that drills the hole down, we put a big cutter head on and it grinds its way up. No one has to mine off ladders anymore. So we still do use these for putting pins in the back and stuff like that.
So this one here, what would be the weight of it?
About 55 kilos.
One
I used to be able to put them on my shoulder and carry them. Now I can't lift them off the ground.
And even this one.
This one is about the same weight, nearly. Now, this here is what's called the silver string. That's exactly the machine that I was using when I was a boy, mining tunnels. I spent quite a few years mining shafts, mining tunnels, and sinking shafts. So I was rising, going up, sinking, going down, and using these going horizontally. These are the backbreakers. There's no air leg for support. This is for drilling down with your sinking shafts. So you've got two hoses hanging off it, one with high pressure air, one with water, a drill steel on the end of it, a little pebbles go down beside the steel and you try to lift it out. I can't lift it now. I used to lift it up above my head 50, 60 times a day when I was a young boy. That's actually a photo of me back in about 1970.
So they're using the air pressure.
Yes. All of these ran on air. We never had any electricity when we were actually working. Within the mine, we had electric pumps to pump using one of these.
That's you.
Yeah.
That's some of there.
C1S sharp.
Oh, you
Yeah.
But how old,
Yeah.
how old were you then?
By then I would have been 24, 23,
Ah.
23.
You did all this hard work and still had a bypass.
Oh, I get a bit of trouble sometimes, but people ask questions and you've just got to answer them. I was having a lot of back trouble.
Yes.
I started racing push blocks, and that, I'm sure that helped a lot. I've also, when I had the heart operation, I've got a defibrillator to keep me going.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah. But when I came to, the surgeon said to me, "You're a lucky man you didn't smoke because your lungs were black."
Good.
But I was told I had lung problems, or knew I had lung problems when I was about 35. And that's another reason why I started racing push bikes and make my lungs work. It nearly killed me. I'd get off the bike and I'd be huffing and puffing and coughing. But I think that's one of the reasons I'm still standing here now. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with it. So those machines were developed in the 50s and we used them right up into the 70s. This machine here comes from in the 40s. It's bigger and heavier, and this is one of the very first machines to actually have its own feed. There's a gear in here that when the piston goes back and forward, it operates a ratchet, and another gear follows that feed screw along. And so as the ratchet goes that way, it moves forward, you flip the switch, and it moves back. So that was a major innovation. This here is from the 30s. It's one of the very first machines that actually had water going through it. Before then, all these other machines, they were called widowmakers. They were called widowmakers because your life expectancy if you operated one of these machines was somewhere between 4 and 6 years in a gold mine and up to about 9 years in a hard rock mine. Because you're just working in a cloud of dust.
Oh, really?
So this one got water, but it still had so these machines here are the predecessors of that one, and nowadays of course we've got the big lathe for it. But this machine only hammers, it had no rotation. So the operator had to just get hammering, that's so we could actually keep chipping away. This is the very first attempt to suppress the dust with the rising feed. These are rising feeds. They hadn't worked out how to put water in the machine and through the drill skimmer. They didn't know how to do it. They got a little tap here and the water jet here. We spray water up to try and suppress the dust. My son's done a lot of research, and way back when they first introduced these, the miners wouldn't use them because they reckon they're better off living for 3 or 4 years and getting out of mining and surviving than using this and dying next week of pneumonia because there was no cure for pneumonia back then either. And so that was the first attempt at spraying water up into the air to try and suppress the dust. And this one's older than that. It's got no water at all, but it still has to.
That's a big blockbuster one.
Within the car industry, the T-model Ford was the first mobile, self-motivated vehicle that actually was successful, it worked, and they built 15 million of them. Well, this is the T-model Ford of mining. Before this machine, that's how they did it. If you look here, there's 2 guys, one's holding a piece of steel, turning it, And there's two guys hitting it with hammers. It's called hammer and tap drilling. And there were various attempts made at making a machine that would actually drill rock, but this is the first successful one. This is the T model for mining. But just think for a moment, what would you think the population of the world could possibly be if this had never been invented? If we had to mine all of our metals like that, we'd have no ploughs, no tractors, no planes, no trains, no cars, no trucks, and we could not provide the world with food. So this here was a marvellous invention, and it's never got the credit that it should have got. So this is the very first Widowmaker. It's actually a steam engine. There's a piston in there that goes back and forward just like a steam engine. This actually goes in and out. The whole piston goes in and out, and the drill steel tap, 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 it drills a hole. One of these machines is capable of consuming up to 3 tonnes of steel a month. Because the steel got blunt, it went to the blacksmith, he smashed it back into shape, tempered it, and sent it back. And so it just kept wearing down. So they bought the steels about 6'6" long, and as they wore down, to when they were very short, they actually started the hole with them, because this machine can only move from there to here. It can only move about that far, so you started the hole with a steel that was worn down, and you kept changing the steel and putting longer ones on it. Just think of the logistics. We go back to 1900. The steel would have come from Sheffield in England, come to Townsville. The end of the railway line was Richmond. Everything had to be carried from Richmond to the mining area, which is the Cloncurry Mount Isa mining field, with trains. In 1901 we had the worst drought Australia's ever had. There was no grass, so they couldn't transport anything. So they had to shut all the mines down, and everybody had to leave because they couldn't get food, they couldn't get anything. And we think we're hard up right now because if we want to go to Townsville, we've got to fly down. They went for 9 months, they had to leave the area. We live in an amazing world when you start doing a bit of research. So eventually, all this bits of junk, my son brings it home, you think, what the hell did you bring that home for? Well, he brought that home. What did you bring that home for? Well, he had this machine almost built, but he never had a valve. That bit of rusty junk had a valve on it, that one. So it took him months soaking it in molasses, and got it all apart, and he made new seals for it and whatever. And all of these machines will actually go if you put air on them. You wouldn't try and drill with them because they're 140 years old and they most will be full of pieces. So the original patent was 1874, I think. And the manufacture date on this one is 1880. So, as I said, he goes out bush scratching around old mines, and he took me out one day and he said, look, there'd been a mine there way back in 1900, and they put a shaft down and just taken a narrow ore body. And what happened around the area here, back in around the 50s, they came around with big drills on the back of trucks, and they tested around the old mines. And a lot of places, they'd taken the rich ore, but there was low-grade ore, which with our modern machinery and bulldozers and loaders and big trucks became economic. And so they bulldozed all the surface around this mine. He took me out there and he said, look, there's this pile of dirt, bits of steel and stuff sticking out of it. Anyway, it got the better of him, so he hired a little excavator and went out. Now, to you, this looks like junk. To me, this is real treasure. These are the very first screw-on disposable bits. So instead of one of these machines using 3 tonnes of steel a month because they kept wearing the steel down, they made the steel with the thread on it. By then they'd worked out how to put a hole through it, and these are the very first screw-on disposable bits. So they got sharpened, and when there was nothing left to sharpen, they just threw it away and bought another one. I just think of the cost of freight alone to bring 3 tonnes of steel a month, every month, to operate one of these machines. You carry it around in your pocket. Well, so we live in a marvellous world. There's some photos here. This machine seems to be that machine that's at the back there. It's identical. The guy there is turning the handle. In 1911, the Queensland government passed legislation. If you're going to be using one of these machines in a mine, you had to have somebody either throwing water on the hole to try and suppress the dust, or hosing it. So here's a photo here. This guy here, he's holding a hose, hosing water on the hole to try and suppress the dust. And look at the wall. There's a candle and a carbide light. That's all the lights they had back then. And that photo was taken in Mount Isa mines in very, very early days. There's another photo here which gives you an idea when I was talking about these bits. On the left, there's a whole lot of drill steels. That was the number of steels required to keep one of these machines going for a shift. And when they got the screw-on bits, the photo on the right, 1 steel for each change as the hole got deep. So we live in an amazing world when you start looking at the way we've evolved and machinery's evolved. Okay, right now I'm going to give you a helmet each and a vest each.